Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining this interesting panel today within the OpenNebula Conference 2023. So today I have the pleasure to have here with me four wonderful women in the context of data spaces and edge computing. So they are bringing different aspects, both from data spaces and edge computing, quite complementary. And here today, during the panel, we will discover through the several questions how these two worlds can live together and can benefit each other. So they will introduce themselves after this first introduction that I would like to bring to the webinar today. So probably most of you are quite aware about edge computing and everything related to continuum computing, because it's one of the main core aspects of OpenNebula. So here today, we would like to introduce a little bit more on data spaces, which perhaps is not so core at the community currently. So just allow me to give you some few introductory concepts about data spaces, as I will be here representing the Data Spaces Support Center. Firewall Foundation, the organization that I belong to, is a partner of this initiative that I will detail later on. And that is defining a data space as an infrastructure that facilitates data transactions in an ecosystem supported by a governance and generic enough in order to support several implementation use cases. So here, when we are talking about infrastructure, we are not talking about only digital infrastructure or edge or cloud infrastructure. We are talking about different things. We are talking about the ecosystem itself, which is the participants in this data space. We are talking about the governance that is regulating the participation in this ecosystem and the relationship between the participants. And we are also talking about the digital framework, the digital infrastructure and components that are required in order to deploy this data space. When we talk about data sharing, we are talking about three main concepts. One is providing interoperability mechanisms in order to allow different participants in the ecosystem to speak the common language and to share the data effectively. We are talking about guaranteeing the sovereignty and trust of the data and between the participants. And we are talking about how we can create value out of the data, out of the services built on this data. According to the European Data Strategy, we can see that they have funded several common European data spaces, up to 12 currently, and in different sectors for deploying different data spaces. And there is an initiative on top of them, which is called the Data Space Support Center, with a mission to coordinate and to govern all of them in order to become interoperable. So thus the mission, or the three main objectives of the Data Space Support Center, is on one side to create the network of stakeholders around this concept of data spaces. On a second objective is to identify which are the common requirements across all these data spaces in order to support the European Data Innovation Board in the implementation of the Data Act. And finally, the third objective is to create a common platform in order to allow the data spaces to exchange knowledge and to provide support to the data spaces in the phases of both preparing the data space and deploying the data space. So then the mission of the Data Space Support Center is to support these data spaces, providing guidelines, tools, any kind of mechanisms in co-creation process with them, in order to allow these data spaces to be focused on providing benefits, social or businesses, to their participants, instead of being aware of how to create or how to deploy a data space. So then the support center is planning to deliver different assets in order to help the data spaces. Some of them are already out, others will be soon available for the community, starting from a brief guideline for the beginners in data spaces in order to know how to set up a data space, a blueprint that is formed by a glossary, conceptual model, different building blocks, components, and recommended standards in order to address both the technical and the business, legal, and governance aspects of the data spaces. It will also deliver a kind of radar where the data spaces will be positioned according to their maturity and to the different features of the data space. And everything supported by a platform, a digital platform, where the data spaces may share this knowledge, and the network of stakeholders that is formed by the data spaces, but also by other relevant stakeholders in the community. And finally, organizing annual conferences in order to promote and to make visible the results of the initiative. So if you want to know more about data spaces, you have to go to the place of dscc.eu, where all this information is available and extended. So now let's start with the discussion with our colleagues here in the webinar. With the first question, raising the role of your organizations and yourselves in this world of common European data spaces. What are you doing there, and which is your interest, and which is also your expertise that you are bringing to this panel today? So maybe Kaya, if you want to start.
Hi guys, my name is Kaya Svat. I'm the VP of Phoenix Systems, and we are developing the OS for IoT devices. So our Phoenix RTOS was already broadly used in the energy sector. So these are experience that we have with IoT, with how the data, small amounts, small chunks of data is produced, and then how it's used in several data spaces for the energy sector. So we know what is the value that this data can provide. We also have some experience about the obstacles and difficulties that are over there. And following this sector, we also began implementation of our RTOS in avionics and space sector. So our horizon is a bit broader now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Kaya. Elena, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So I'm the representative of the TNO, which is the Applied Research Organization of the Netherlands. It's a research and technology organization, and it's actively contributing actually to the definition and establishment of the data spaces. We are active members of EDS organization and Gaia X, and also recently we are part of the European Alliance for Industrial Data Edge Cloud. Nationally, TNO is also coordinator of Dutch Gaia X hub, and we do also manage the Dutch Center of Excellence for data sharing and cloud. Through the Center of Excellence, we are making link between the European developments and Dutch sectors in an interest for data sharing, specifically concentrated mostly on technical interoperability, technical clients for different organizations for IDS, but also on data governance. So one of our big focuses is harmonizing data spaces as well. And within the same Center of Excellence, we also aim to link the cloud and edge infrastructure ecosystems to the data space developments, such that infrastructure sector can prepare to construct suitable cloud and edge offerings demanded by data spaces. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elena. Francisca, please.
Yeah, hello everyone, and also hello to the participants out there. We cannot see you, but we hope you're there. And yeah, in case you have any questions, I think you can use the chat function, and we are happy to answer these questions. So my name is Franziska Scherenberg, and I'm working as a researcher for Fraunhofer ISST since 2 years now. My research focuses on data sovereignty and how it can be a capability for organizations. Also, thank you very much, Alberto and colleagues, for the invitation today, and thanks for the introduction, Clara. Maybe to explain a bit the context of Fraunhofer ISST. So our institute has at its core the strategy and to research the value and the sovereign handling of data. And also we develop solutions for data management and the establishment of data architectures. And also in cooperation with our industry customers and political advisors, we are establishing frameworks for the secure, controllable use of data across company boundaries, which is where data spaces come into the play. Our managing director, Boris Otto, sits at the board of IDSA, Gaia X, and also Catena X. And the Fraunhofer ISST itself is involved in many data space activities. So we are coordinating the Data Spaces Support Center and also involved in Catena X, Mobility Data Space, and Manufacturing X, only to mention a few. So thank you very much. And then over to the next.
Thank you very much, Francisca. Last but not least, Silvia, please.
Thank you. My name is Silvia Castelvi. I am Director of Research and Standardization at IDSA, International Data Space Association. We have the mission to create a standard based on our reference architecture model for secure and sovereign and data sharing. So we are working on that for more than 6 years. And now we can contribute to the DSSC on the data spaces on how to secure and sovereign data sharing and provide different assets for implementing data spaces. You can see on our website all these assets that we are offering to the data spaces community, and we can talk more about it later. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Silvia. As Francisca said, you can use the chat for any question that you may have during the panel. So don't be shy, and if you want to know more about colleagues in the panel, please write a message here. So as a following question, I would like to ask all of you, or the ones that want to answer about that, which are, according to the massive usage and population of IoT and edge deployments that are creating a great potential for the economy, what, in your opinion, are the main challenges that you see in this model, considering the current European cloud market? So who wants to start?
If Elena? I may...
okay. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Elena.
Okay, maybe let's start with the current structure of the market of cloud. What we can say is that practically market dynamics right now are different for cloud and edge, first of all, and also really varying from business to consumer to business markets. And if we can say that in cloud, we see the domination of few non-European players practically, which do dominate the market. And currently, actually 92% of EU data is located in foreign data clouds. And within the European market, the cloud providers are really fragmented, and mostly the CPS and SMEs, and typically delivering infrastructure without rich features. At the same time, in edge, there is a huge presence of edge components. And at the same time, the market is still very young and not that commoditized as the cloud, but it also provides opportunities since the data is majorly provided a lot of data by the devices. And the key challenges that we foresee from that perspective, first of all, that in many cases, cloud and edge should work together. And that means that both paradigms should become integrated continuum, which provides good infrastructure for actual data sharing, where manageability becomes that easy as within typical hyperscale clouds nowadays. Orchestration and self-awareness of IT stack is very important as the edge, which is very heterogeneous. And then we should talk about switching barriers, where we should take the lessons from the cloud market, how it was evolved till now, when we have that big players with commercial solutions. Instead, we should look into openness, into interoperability and standardization efforts. That should be a big design efforts for reference architectures, frameworks for cloud and edge, which actually includes also data plane. So together, data spaces and edge and cloud continuums. in such a way that vendors from small to large should be able to construct new offerings within new and existing edge and cloud ecosystems. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Elena. So now looking at the counter side, on the data spaces side, Silvia, what would you say are the main challenges?
I completely agree with with all the statements that has said before, and I will add that the data spaces contribute because we design decentralized architecture where we promote, instead of bringing the data to a platform, to a cloud, we promote that execute the services, the algorithms close to where the data has been generated. So this is the base for designing and deploying data spaces, to try to be decentralized, not aggregate data in one silos platform. But this brings several challenges. One of the challenges that has been mentioned before is the interoperability. So we have these distributed data services that needs to be interoperable. So for that, we need a common way to access to this data, to trade the data, but also at the same time, assuring the trust and the sovereignty. And for this reason, we are working together, data spaces, and also to provide to the edge cloud computing how to implement this continuum on the federated architecture of data spaces. But another important challenge that we achieve with this federated infrastructure is to reduce the barriers for SMEs, for startups to enter and provide services, because with this data spaces federated infrastructure, we compete on the services and we don't compete on the aggregation of data for producing these algorithms and services. These are my 2 cents.
Okay, interesting, Silvia. So I think that Katya wanted to say something, so please go ahead, Katya.
Yeah, thank you. So in my opinion, it's technical problems, business problems, political problems. These all are broad problems that prevent data spaces to be commonly used. I agree with Silvia on the technical level. The interoperability is a huge challenge to overcome, because not only the services but also the devices with the cloud have to be interoperable within the continuum, but also devices between themselves. There are many manufacturers that are operating on the market, on European market also, and for this I think we need to think about standardization. It's already happening, but it's still not enough, and it would be a huge help for the data centers to be used more broadly and for them to bring more value. On the business level, many times the problem comes to not sharing the data, not making them common, because of the business issue. We want to hide, we want to close off, because we see the value in that we will be the first in the sector. I don't think it's necessarily true, and there should be a discussion about this. Politically, this comes from the sector that I'm personally involved with, and with the company involved in the energy. It is a critical sector for many countries, for all of the countries. We cannot afford to make mistakes. We have to evaluate the risk, and the steps have to be really small in terms of providing and developing new technology or introducing new technology to this sector. If we go too fast, then we risk big outages, and this is a big no-no for obvious reason. So this prevents these kind of big sectors to go into common data spaces and to make a better use of the data. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you, Kaya. So we can see that it's a very holistic challenge what we are facing. So let's move then to the next question. A reminder about the questions in the chat. So can you tell me, in your opinion, which is or could be the role of edge cloud computing in particular, but Continuum in general, in order to ensure data sovereignty, usage control, and trust in this in the EU data economy? Which is, under your opinion, the value of edge computing and Continuum here? Who wants to be first?
Maybe I can take this question first, Clara.
Okay,
so thank you very much.
Sure.
Thanks for the question, and it's very interesting as we see that here are many concepts mentioned, like data sovereignty, usage control, and trust, for example. And as we are here 5 different individuals at a table, I think looking at these concepts would bring 5 different definitions of these concepts. So what I think is very crucial here is also to get a mutual understanding of what we want to achieve and what we aim to have in this. And therefore, maybe I can also point to a glossary that we are developing, because we face the same issue in the Data Spaces Support Center to really define the terms, and that is a continuous discussion and also activity in that DSSC. Maybe we can also post a link to that, because it's very interesting how these things relate and how they are defined. Also at Fraunhofer, we did a research on the delimitation between data sovereignty, digital and technological sovereignty. So I think all in all, a mutual understanding of the concepts first, and then going the questions would be great. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anything else to add from the others? Elena.
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, I would say that maybe if we are talking specifically about edge computing and the instruments which data spaces EDS provides, actually, it really could be an interesting definition, because practically edge is where data nowadays is mostly being generated, recorded, and processed, right? And that is also where the place where some decisions, already localized decisions, are being made, effectuated. And practically, it means that the whole data processing is near user nowadays. So we're talking again about sensitive data, but also controlled access to data that starts already on the devices level. And to gain the trust to practically all data sharing and data exchange, so that the proximity of edge computer to the data source and the ability to have it localized already fosters trust in the data processing, because it is localized. And at the same time, using the instruments on governance and on control access from data spaces, it allows to build even more trust into the whole solutions, and to use actually data spaces together with the underlying cloud and edge continuum as the really trustful and controlled infrastructure. And also they together can contribute in general to sustainable development of the whole economy in several ways. So it reduces the need to data transmission over long instances if you use edge, results in lower network congestion, reduced energy consumption, decreased carbon emissions. And second, by enabling local processing together with good governance from data spaces, it supports sufficient resources allocations, predictive maintenance, optimized energy management, leading to the energy savings and sustainability improvements for the whole world. Thanks.
Thank you, Elena. I think, Silvia, that you already introduced some hints about this question in your previous answer, but I don't know if you want to add something else.
Yes, that's cool that you talk about this sustainability. And just to add on the comment from Elena, it's what we are seeing on data spaces regarding the trust that we bring to the ecosystem, not only on the verification of the identity to bring trust, but also on the data sovereignty. So what we are talking is in a deslocalized way. So we can apply contracts negotiation and data usage enforcement with data policies. That this is the innovation, and this is the advance on previous solution to be able to enforce this data usage control. That's just to add a little bit. Yeah.
And if I may,
Kaya, you want to? Yes, please.
thanks, Clara. So I think that what to add to Elena's, yes, there are many things that are really really good and are beneficial, but to have those benefits and to have this sovereignty, we have to invest in local technology. We have a lot of companies that are working on new European technology that provides real value to those solutions. I'm thinking about OpenNebula. I'm thinking about ourselves, and I think this is the key. You cannot be independent if at the end you are using a Chinese chip. You cannot be independent if at the end your data lands in foreign clouds on foreign servers. This is a big no-no, and I think this discussion should also play a big part now.
Yeah, in regards to that, Kaya, I would like to add that from the support center, we will be promoting the implementation of building blocks that will be suitable for data spaces, and then we welcome all the implementers that would like to create pieces of functionality for data spaces according to the specifications provided by the support center. So I think it's a good challenge also
With real
for them
pleasure,
here.
Clara. And additionally, I would like to say that a very big importance is in having this technology and developing it locally. But also, my opinion is that we should promote open source technology,
Yes, indeed.
because this is the way to have fast growth in what we can deliver, in having young people attracted to what is being done in Europe, and to share.
Okay,
So
yeah,
thanks
indeed,
again.
I agree. I agree, and I think that it's good that all of us share this common view on synergies between
Maybe,
the two worlds. Yes, Francisca.
yeah, maybe to add upon this, this requires, of course, also a cultural change. So not only coming with the next generation, but I think that cultural change need to come sooner. And also, yeah, we have there, so to say, we're paving the way with this European approach, and let us try to stay ahead of the time.
I would like to add that, yeah, this is an extremely opportunity for European companies, because we are leading this new revolution or new technology advance. But we have another challenge that we have not commented yet, and it's the lack of the skills. So we need a lot of people working on these developments, because we need to create a new infrastructure that is not just for Europe, it's for international level. And as you said before, Francesca and Katja, we have fantastic developers, but they are not enough. So that's, yeah, I don't have the answer. So it's just, it's for people that is here working with universities and member states to put the attention to find the required skills for the next years.
I think we do have skills, really. If I think about the colleagues from my university, the young people that we are having now for interviews, these are really, really good people. The problem that I am facing now at our company is that Google, Amazon, they are taking people from us.
Yeah, because there is not enough. So yeah,
There is not enough, but there are many young people that are very skilled who are just waiting to grab a chance to do something interesting and something big. And I think we should give them the chance to do that and to operate on their highest level, which is really, really high.
Yes, to raise the motivation for them to stay. Yeah. Okay, so I think that what is clear is that there is a role for edge computing in the context of data spaces. So it's just the first step in the path. Let's move then to the next question, which is about a little bit on the other way around. So, in your opinion, which are the requirements that the data spaces configuration and deployment is bringing to the edge cloud infrastructure that we have currently in Europe and will be growing up in the following years? So what do you think that data spaces will impose in the short, medium term to this edge cloud infrastructure? Who wants to be the first?
So I would hope it would be standardization and interoperability, so everything would work together. What do you think, girls?
We are working yes on the standardization, but it's just starting. So we have the new regulation from the European Commission that should be standardized. And there are different standardization bodies that has already incorporating data spaces on the standards. But I will say that I will ask to the companies that are developing gateways on the edge to look into the requirements of data spaces, because we are, and also under the DSSC, the blueprint, we will publish the requirements for developing the endpoints, the software that we need in every endpoint that wants to enter to the data space, to follow these standards and fulfill the specifications in order to be able to share the data according to the specifications of the DSSC in order to provide the requirements that we have been commenting before: interoperability, trust, sovereignty. So I will encourage these companies to look into and how to adapt their solutions to that.
Francisca, you want to say something?
Yes, maybe one could add to this the comments just made, that we need to think the edge cloud infrastructure and the development of data spaces together from the beginning and not as separated entities. So let's benefit the one from each other. And as you just said also, Clara, connect closer with your colleagues, Katja, also with the Data Spaces Support Center, to really see, okay, what are the needs from your side and what are the needs from the data spaces side, and bring that together.
Well, there are needs, of course, but I can see that the biggest need is to have a common goal and this standardization. On our level, on the IoT level, we already see this need very heavily. We have even developed an alliance, is the Edge IoT Alliance, where we want to standardize the API of the operating system that should operate on the IoT devices. This is just to help others have a common language, common way of communication between those devices. I think that would help a lot. And if anybody is interested, maybe guys, you can share the link to Edge IoT Alliance.
Okay, and could you say that the requirements that data spaces are bringing to the edge cloud infrastructure is specific of the domain, or we may also find some common requirements across all data spaces that may be applicable here.
I think we may and we should, although it's a very difficult process. For now, each sector each domain has its own requirements. And each customer also deviates a bit from the common understanding of the sector. So it's really difficult. The approach of having this API for the device that would stay the same and would facilitate all of the requirements, or most of the requirements of many domains. We have thought about that during the IPSA cloud process, where we promoted this approach. So the idea for us is to go through different domains, see what is common, what could be common if you opened your mind a bit, and then based on that, define those requirements for the end devices, for the far edge devices, and create this API. But as I said, we are thinking that it's going to be a process.
Yeah, okay. So I think it's first Elena and then Silvia.
Okay, thank you. So practically, indeed, my first point to mention was also interoperability and standardization. It's discussed a lot, but I only want to pinpoint that interoperability becomes indeed a very high issue, especially we are talking about edge computing, where we have so different devices from so different producers, and they use very different descriptions, etc. So to make a standardization of that, it is a very important task. But let's also not forget that data spaces emphasize also the importance of privacy and security, and then that edge cloud infrastructure needs to incorporate some security mechanisms at their level, such as encryption, access control, secure communication channels, to help to protect data through its life cycle. So let's not forget compliance with GDPR and other data protection acts, ensuring that personal data, especially if you're talking about devices, is handled with appropriate consent. So that's practically to help data spaces to really guarantee good measures for security and data privacy. And the same goes for data governance and control, where actually also infrastructure should provide some mechanisms for data spaces to be able to control actually data more. So like fine-grained access control on device level, data ownership usage policies on device level, audit trails, monitoring, which also would help data spaces to really provide that good service on data governance and control. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elena. Silvia?
Yes, I will to comment, to continue the comment from Katja and also commenting Elena, that we are in fact, from data spaces, we are working on the standardization on how to establish this data sharing, secure data sharing. For example, we are working on one standard that is called Data Space Protocol. I can share the link before. And in this protocol, we differentiate two planes. One is the control plane, where we apply the contract negotiations, the data usage, and from the communication plane. And in the communication plane, we can use different protocols, different standards for establishing the communication and data sharing, and include the ones that you have commented, Katja, for the devices communication, because on the control plane, we agree how to communicate the data, and then the data starts at the communication level according to this agreement. So this is on what we are working, and also at the same time defining specifications and standardizing it.
Okay, what is clear according to your answers is that definitely data spaces will bring some requirements to the edge cloud infrastructure. So if we move, sorry, I move so fast. If we move to the following question, Let's see then how critical is for the EU industry come together and lead the development of European open source technologies for common European data spaces and for Edge Cloud Continuum. I think that some of you already mentioned the role of open source technologies in all this ecosystem and in all these interactions between the two worlds. But I think that if you want to emphasize on that and to put really the criticality on the usage of open source technologies, the floor is yours.
Well, if I may, but
Yes,
I would like to tell you a bit of an example from our backyard, from the energy sector. So imagine if all DSO or utilities in Europe came together and shared data in a common data space. What would happen? So we would actually, if these were quality data, real-time quality data, we would all be able to develop solutions that will tell us when, where there is energy consumption, and in the exact amount of the consumption. Also, we would be able to predict what will be the consumption, also production of energy in the households. If we have that, then we can balance the grid. If we can balance the grid, we are able to produce exactly as much as we need. We are able to promote the prosumers and local production, and we are able as Europe to be independent. This would happen, but it's very difficult for this to happen because, well, as I said before, this sector is good to discuss because it's critical. It has this kind of obstacles. Also, we are afraid of the risk because if we are changing something, maybe it will go wrong. So it's better not to change. But on the other side, on the other hand, we all can see the potential benefits. So we are triggered to use something, and things are actually changing. So this what I wanted to add as a separate example and a bit different. And back to the open source. Again, if you are using open source, especially the one that we have developed in Europe, then if you are using it, we are creating community around it. We are making it bigger and better. So I think this is the best way to develop together in a community and making it better and use.
Yeah, thank you, Kaya. Any other opinion about this, Elena?
Yeah, so practically just to start with what was finished and quite indeed, that it's important to create collaborative communities. It's important indeed to have autonomy in Europe, but also for businesses. It means that if you bring such open source technology, it's also could provide cost-effective alternatives to proprietary solutions, right? Or eliminate or reduce licensing fees, vendor lock-ins, for example. It also provides a bigger value with the open technologies. So practically, also it can lower entry barriers for businesses, particularly for smaller businesses, startups, enabling them to participate and innovate with the growing data economy in general. So also, what's important, I think, to say, if we use the open source technologies, it also could provide greater transparency between all the players if we talk about complex different markets. So, but also kind of maybe also a good mean for independent verification, security of whole data chains, on whole data exchange things, and of course foster interoperability, which was mentioned, and collaboration among so different stakeholders and among so different markets, so that you in the end can put together an energy maybe market and food market, agriculture market, and industry market, for example, to solve a bigger problem on European level.
Yeah, indeed. For me, open source is a driver for interoperability. So I fully agree. Francisca, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I wanted to add, based on all the positive chances that we have with open source, and I would also highly, once more underline the interoperability, but also the transparency that it creates. However, it's also, of course, the power of the many. So it needs resources, and the one or the organization, the country, the region sending most resources will then have also the biggest voice. And then also another question of how to govern such a community. So just to make this also as a statement.
Any other comment about the open source stuff? I think it's clear that the open source and open standards are definitely drivers for data sharing and for data spaces. So we have a question from the audience, which is asking about a little bit of the innovation process about all of this. So in order to build technology that Europe needs for data spaces, we have a combination of research organizations and private companies. And the question is about if there is funding enough for working together in building this technology, how we can put together the different mentalities from the industry, from the research world, and if there is different expectations in terms of time to market, how can we cope with this balance of expectations in order to be fruitful and create really the technology we need? I think Kaya wanted to say something here.
Yeah, I can start the discussion.
Yeah.
I represent the point of view of a company. So I'm in the role, sometimes, not always, of course, but I'm in the role of a company that cooperates with research organization. And I value this cooperation a lot. There are obstacles, of course, the mentalities are different, and the sense of time to market is different. I don't think it's necessarily bad, because two different point of view make somebody from the business sector to stop and think why, and to go around the idea and maybe figure out something better. For example, cooperating with research companies also gives us a lot of benefits in terms of propagating our open source technology in universities, in those research organizations, which brings young people to our technology, which makes them know our technology, and which makes and it creates a lot of young people that are interested in innovation, in creating new solutions with the use of the technology that we are making. So I think that cooperation is a must. About funding and the lack of it, it's different on different levels, because on a country level, I am pretty sure that each of us has different experience as we come from different countries, because here we have country requirements, and they may differ a bit. I would say when you have a good idea, it's fairly easy to get the funding. Although on the country level, in our case, and we are based in Poland, it's more difficult to go through all the paperwork on the country level than on European level. But it's with a nice idea, it's fairly easy to get the funding. On European level, for me, it's more difficult to get the funding, but if you get the funding, the paperwork is less, so it's easier to work on this idea.
Yeah, I think that in terms of funding and time to market, the European Commission is providing different programs that adjust better depending on the level of maturity and the technology
Yes,
readiness.
but
Like
if
you
you
can
are
apply for different programs. Yeah.
if you are looking from the business perspective, you are always thinking about the time to market. Even if you are working in a project that is supposed to reach TRL 5 at the end, you always have it in your mind. What is going to come next? It's always an investment, and at some point it should pay off.
Yeah, truly. Okay, so I think that Silvia wanted to contribute also to this.
Yes. Yeah, this is a very good question, and what we are and it is also a challenge because the research projects has one purpose that is in some kinds is research with very low TRLs. Meanwhile, a company should develop solutions for the market with high TRLs, but I think that in fact we are collaborating in projects to balance and to define use cases where we can test these innovation technologies, and also where we can align on defining a roadmap. For example, from IDSA and Fireware, GaiaX, BDBA, we are working together on the Data Spaces Business Alliance. That is an association of these 4 companies and has agreed how to implement and how to develop the data spaces with a clear roadmap. You can find on the website of the DSBA the architecture coherence document explaining it. And then the different research projects has to implement, has to develop services on that, has to test it and implement. So here we can collaborate between researchers and companies to launch it. And the other comment is about sample, that the European Commission, in order to not reinvent the wheel, not overlapping, is providing a common infrastructure for data spaces that is called sample. It was just launched this year, and we are expecting the results of this procurement action from the European Commission. So a lot of things moving at the same time.
Okay, thank you, Silvia. Any further answer? Yes, Francisco.
Sorry, maybe also to add upon this. So it's of course the research organizations that also need implementation projects to know where research shall go. So it's great to have, for example, examples of Iona X, Catena X, and other data space initiatives that have real business problems to solve. And with that, with an objective, then also research like push and pull factors, so to say, can work better together.
And if I might add, Clara, what we are seeing from market is that the companies, in order to test these technologies, don't start with sensitive data. They are working on defining sustainable use cases. For example, for carbon footprint, traceability, these use cases that are cross-sectorial and sometimes cross-border, they are defining these use cases in order to test these technologies in real market solution.
Okay, thank you very much.
Maybe we can talk a bit about what happens next after those TRLs 5 or 6 are reached. Commonly, the more you go into the technology, the more it costs. So it's I think it's fairly easy overall to get the funding to reach this 5 or 6 TRL, but then you have to invest your own money or banks or whatever to get it to tier 9 or 10, and this is usually much more than it was in the beginning, especially that at some point you have to also invest not only in technology but in marketing, in business development. And in my opinion, here we are lacking support. I don't know if you guys agree.
Yeah, I think I can agree with you, Kaya. Just to finish this discussion, indeed, there is a support for exploitation of the further exploitation of results and clarification of the plans of how to bring it actually to work in practice. Indeed, that is the way.
Okay, colleagues, I think we need to close the panel here today. I really thank all of you for your time, for your answers, and for your insights about the collaboration between data spaces and edge cloud computing worlds. And well, I also thank to the audience to be there and to attend carefully what these ladies wanted to say. So thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the afternoon.
Thank you, guys, and
Bye-bye.
thanks to
Thank you.
OpenNebula for organizing this.
Thank you.
Bye.